Okay, whenever.
Great. Thank you. Hello, I am Juliana Reshik, and I serve as the chair for the Continuing Nurse Education and IV Therapy Committee of the Kansas State Board of Nursing. I ask the members of the Continuing Nurse Education and IV Therapy Committee to respond to a roll call signifying their presence at this open meeting via conference call. Rebecca Saunders.
Present.
Audrey Goldsmith.
Present.
Gwendolyn Lloyd.
Here.
Giovanni Gahn.
Present.
Melanie Burnett.
She's absent with notice.
Great. Thanks, Chelsea. Laura Arbile. Okay. Kanetta Markaloins.
She's absent with notice as well.
Great. And Karen Oftenberg.
Present.
Great. Thanks, Karen. I ask the following board staff members to signify their attendance. Carol Moreland, Executive Administrator.
Here.
Chelsea Stevenson, Education Specialist.
Here.
And Michelle Brown, Senior Administrative Assistant.
Present.
Great, thanks. Public comment allows individuals to address the Continuing Nurse Education and IV Therapy Committee about their concerns, but the Kansas Open Meetings Act, which is known as COMA, does not require the Continuing Nurse Education and IV Therapy Committee to provide public comment or answer questions from individuals. Public comment will not be taken today because there is the possibility that the connection for this remote meeting may be lost over time, and the time for the meeting may not allow everyone who is present to comment. Additionally, we will not know what comments an individual may make, and we would want to provide notice to the public of our intent to discuss a particular matter so that the public may listen and observe our discussion. Because we are conducting this public meeting remotely by Zoom and YouTube, I state for the record the following information. On August 28th, 2021, the board sent notice of the meeting for the Continuing Nurse Education and IV Therapy Committee to all individuals who have requested notice of the committee's meetings. Additionally, the notice and agenda were posted on the board's website, ksbn.kansas.gov. You may obtain a copy of the notice and agenda at the website or by sending an email to carol.moreland@ks.gov with the subject line request for the agenda, and the board staff will send it to you. The notice contains the internet links to access the meeting by Zoom and YouTube. The notice also contains the Zoom telephone number to attend this meeting by telephone call. All of these electronic mediums allow the public to attend this meeting free of charge. The notice also advises individuals to contact the board's office at 785-296-2967 if they experience any technical issues during the meeting. The only mediums for interactive communication offered for this meeting are the connections by Zoom and YouTube, as previously stated. Each member of the committee, board staff, or presenter shall state the person's name and title each time the person speaks or votes, as the case may be. Each participant to this meeting shall ensure microphones, phones, or other electronic devices are on mute when the participant is not speaking. Each motion will be clearly stated before the committee votes, and the chair will announce the results of the final vote. A statement or motion will clearly identify and authorize by delegation each member of the committee or staff who will be permitted to sign any document on behalf of the committee. A recording of this meeting will be posted to the board's website. The committee has the following items listed on the agenda: call to order, review of the on-site packet, additions or revisions to the agenda, announcements, approval of minutes for the meeting held in June of 2021, unfinished business, new business, agendas for the committee meeting in December of 2021, and adjournment. Although the items listed in the agenda do not include an executive session, however, if the committee elects to exercise the option to go into executive session, the committee will follow this process. First, the committee must be in an open session before going into an executive session. Then a motion will be made and seconded. Pursuant to KSA 75-4319B, the motion must contain the statement or justification for closure, the subjects to be discussed, and the time and place that the open meeting will resume. If a motion for executive session if the motion for the executive session passes, public will be excluded from this portion of the meeting, as the executive session will be conducted by an electronic means that will not be made available to the public. The committee members will return to the open meeting after the executive session. The open meeting will resume when the committee members return to the Zoom and YouTube meeting after the executive session. The complete motion for an executive session will be recorded in the minutes. The meeting is now called to order, and the committee will now consider the next items on the agenda. So first item would be the review of the on-site packet. I don't believe we had one. Is that correct, Chelsea?
Correct.
Okay. So any additions or revisions to the agenda?
No.
Okay. Knowing that, then we don't need a motion to approve. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay, so moving on, announcements. I would like to extend a very heartfelt thank you to two of our board members that we have had with us for a while, Kanetta and Laura. And they have done a tremendous job of serving on this committee and brought significant insight and leadership to the decisions that we've made. And I know that they are going to be rotating off of our committee. And I just personally want to extend my gratitude and the gratitude from the State Board of Nursing. Chelsea or Carol, I don't know if either of you have any comments you'd like to make.
This is Carol Moreland, and I echo that. I thank them very much. We do have certificates that we will be sending to them since we're kind of meeting virtually and all of that. But we do have certificates of appreciation to send to them.
Great. Oh, those
There
are
you
nice.
go. Yeah. So we will get those out to them.
Okay. Nice, thank you, Carol. Okay, so we'll move to our minutes from our June 15th meeting. Did everyone get an opportunity to look over those?
Board earlier this year sent them certified mail notifying them of their delinquency, asking them to provide us with the delinquent reports and or delinquent fees by a deadline, or the possibility of having their providership revoked was there. We did receive several responses from those notices and got quite a few providers caught up. However, we do still have these 6 that remain. Just scroll to my notes here. So Carol is on the call with us, as well as Charles, our legal counsel, and Carol's going to kind of help me out if I mess this up too bad. But I believe to be where we're at now is that I would just need direction from the committee and board to revoke or withdraw the approved status of the delinquent providers. If the committee and board approves of that, then Charles would send out the summary orders withdrawing their approval status as CNE providers. Of the providers that would be at risk for the withdrawal of their status, they are all at least 2 years behind. We do have 3 of them that have not submitted anything since 2018. So I do have a motion slip prepared to go ahead and withdraw the approved status of those, if that's the direction that the committee would like to move forward with.
So Chelsea, I know that we've had many conversations about this, but will you just review for us one more time the number of communications and reach outs that you've had so we can assure that they've all had an ample opportunity to respond?
Sure. So the CNE providers are sent an email generally 2 months prior to the to the due date, which is July 31st for the annual reports and fees, to let them know of the process, what's required, what they need to submit, and how that's to be done. Typically, about 2 weeks prior to the due date, I would send an email again to anyone who hadn't submitted it. And then once they are late, I send another email. Since COVID, most of my communication with them has been through email. When we were in the office, we would also send letters to the delinquent providers. But since I've come into this position, I've sent at least 2 emails to every provider. I also sent a certified letter to every provider that was delinquent. If that was returned or if I didn't have updated CNE coordinator information, I would address it to CNE coordinator or nursing education or somebody to reach somebody at that organization. And that proved to be successful. I do want to mention that there is one provider who has been delinquent for 3 years. We've not received anything since 2018. I have been in correspondence with them, and they had intended to submit their delinquent reports and fees and then chose not to and just allow the withdrawal process to happen. And then they wish to reapply later this year. I let them know I was not sure what the committee or board would think of that, but they are aware of the due dates. So I've had successful communication with 3 of the providers who are still on the delinquent list, who indicated that they would be submitting what was required, and I've not received that from those 3 specifically. So there was multiple communication attempts, some successful, some not, but that's kind of where we're at.
Just kind of curious, Chelsea, like, for example, the one you just said that they wanted to try it later this year.
Mm-hmm.
Don't they all have an opportunity to get back on the regularly scheduled process? If they so lose it today, they could get back and track again down the road next year. Is that correct? They all have that eligibility?
When I was reviewing the regulations, I didn't see anything specifically, Carol, step in if I'm wrong, that indicates that they would not be eligible to reapply. Basically, what they communicated to me is that the department that would be responsible for the $150 in late fee delinquency payments did not find it necessary or worth it to go back and pay those. They would rather just have the providership withdrawn and then kind of start over from scratch.
Okay.
But I don't know if that's ever happened before in the past, and if the committee or board would consider what's happened in the past. If that delinquency was there prior, I'm not sure how that's happened, if that's even happened before.
This is Carol Moreland, and we have nothing that would stop them from submitting an application, later this year or next year or whenever. Yeah, we have nothing in our regulations that would stop them from doing that.
This is Edric Goldsmith. I had a question. So then there would be a loss of the fees that they had incurred?
Yes, they've not paid the $50 annual fees for several years, most of these delinquent providers. So there was not anything received.
And so they would just be able to write that off. And do we know if they had been performing any CNEs that they had, taken advantage of having the credentialing but not paying the fee?
There is not a way that we would be made aware because the long-term providers aren't required to submit rosters like the single offering. I do know of one provider who's delinquent who still has us listed on their website as being approved through the Kansas Board of Nursing. I don't know if they've offered any CNE. Unfortunately, we just don't have that information, but it is advertised for at least one.
Chelsea, the 3 that indicated they would like to, or they were going to submit their information, how long has it been since last communication with them?
I gave them all a deadline of last Friday, and I spoke with 2 of them last week and let them know that Friday was the deadline, the final deadline, so I could prepare for this week.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Audrey, I think to your point, if there was a reapplication, maybe that is something this committee would consider at that time, past due fees maybe. I don't know if we could or not, but might be worth the discussion at that point.
And this is Charles, your general counsel. I think I'll read you the relevant part of the regulation that might help you in your decision making. If a provider does not, this is KAR 60-9-107 L or L2, okay? If a provider does not continue to meet the criteria for approval, approval may be withdrawn or conditions relating to the providership may be applied by the board after giving the approved provider notice and an opportunity to be heard.
Chelsea, do you have a motion you might like to read for us?
Sure. Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to withdraw the approved status from the following delinquent CNE long-term providers: Atkins Physical Therapy and Ergonomics, Bailey Medical Services, Clay County Medical Center, Kansas Department of Health and Environment, Carson State Hospital and Training Center, and Perinatal Resource.
This is Giovanni Gone, and I make that motion.
Thank you, Giovanni. Is there a second?
Adri Goldsmith, board member, I second.
Thank you, Adri. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Chelsea and Carol. I know that's been a lot of work. CNE coordinator education training.
I just wanted to provide an update that we are going to be having CNE coordinator trainings via Zoom. They will be in October 26th, there will be a session in the morning, and then October 28th, there will be a session in the afternoon. I am planning to send out some information about that in the next week or two. And my hope is that we can record one of those sessions at least to have available on our website for the new coordinators when they come in. And it will just cover basic information, what's required of a CNE coordinator and a CNE providership, include the information about annual reports, 5-year renewal applications, and just common questions that we get from them. So I just wanted to let you all know that that is in the works.
Thank you, Chelsea. Is there an update on the PN program IV therapy rosters?
There is, and Madam Chair, we did have on the agenda an update on CNE regulations first. I didn't know if we wanted to.
Oh,
go
sorry.
back. No, that's okay.
Yes.
And Carol's actually going to take over that part for me.
Okay.
Hey, just to let you know, this is Carol Moreland. I did send the proposed regulations through. They made it through the Division of Budget. When they got to Department of Administration, there's just some minor grammatical changes that she once made. I haven't had a chance to do those yet, but I will. I should have time to work on that next week, and I'll get those back to her. But other than that, hopefully I'll make those changes for Department of Administration, and it'll make it through there. And then the next stop would be the Attorney General's office.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Carol. Okay, now our PN program IV therapy roster update.
Sure. So I wanted to kind of just give a general overview of this because, of course, IV therapy is now part of the CNE committee. So for those who are not aware, the education regulations were updated to allow our PN programs to include IV therapy as a part of their curriculum. And so we now have an electronic submission process of rosters on our website that the PN programs submit to us of their graduates who have successfully completed IV therapy. They submit those no sooner than 30 days prior to graduation. And then Michelle, who is our new education department assistant, goes through those rosters routinely once a week and compares the rosters to the list of new graduates who have been licensed that week. We cannot add their IV therapy certification until they are licensed. So of course, everybody's being licensed at different times after graduation. So this is a really tedious process. But I did want to let you know, we've received probably, I don't know the number for sure, but I think it's over a dozen rosters since December of 2020. We currently have 41 graduates who are still pending, waiting for them to be licensed to have IV therapy certification. We also just began, our IT department has started to generate a report for us of newly licensed nurses each week so that we can compare that list to our rosters and kind of get them licensed and certified as quickly as possible. So I just want to let you know that is an ongoing project that Michelle works on, and it'll be interesting to see how many we get graduation time this December.
Great. Any questions about any of that since this is new to this committee? Okay, thank you, Chelsea. Moving on to new business, our IOA statistical report.
This is on page 6 of your packet, and you'll just see a brief overview just of June, July, and then August up until the 18th, which is when we assemble our packet. Numbers are down a little bit from July as far as the number of IOAs received. However, this is, like I said, up through August 18th, and we all know the big magic deadline of the 28th came and went for the executive order, and we saw a lot of IOA submissions towards the end of the month for that. So I just wanted to let you know we've not received a lot of provider applications and no IV therapy provider applications as well.
Okay. Thank you for that update. Okay, how about we look at the long-term CNE provider annual report?
This begins on page 7 of your board packet, and you'll see a spreadsheet of every CNE provider that we have long-term, and then the numbers that were provided through that annual report submission. I did indicate on this spreadsheet who we had not yet received from. And since this was put together, there are just 2 reports. Or 2 changes to the report. I just want to make note that Amberwell Hiawatha has paid their annual fee, but has not yet submitted their annual report. And then also Republic County Hospital did submit their annual fee, so they are current. But you can kind of just take a look through and see the amount of offerings that were provided. Many of our providers did not offer any CNE. That, of course, is because of the pandemic. And they did reflect that information in their total program evaluations. Something that's not reflected here, but I just wanted to touch on, is that a lot of the long-term providers did shift to a virtual presentation method for their CNE because of the pandemic as well. And that continues to remain accurate for them.
Okay. I appreciate the update. Any questions or comments for Chelsea on that? Okay, thank you, Chelsea. Okay, we have 4 long-term provider relinquishments. Do we need to make a motion on that, Chelsea?
No, we don't need a motion. This is just more of a for your information.
Okay. Okay, well, I appreciate them keeping their accounts accurate and letting us know, so we don't have to go through some of those other processes with them.
Sure.
Let's look at our long-term provider 5-year renewals. We'll start with Cloud County. I don't know if Carol or Chelsea, do you have the list of assignments pulled up? I know this was one of mine.
I do. Let me pull this up real quick. So Cloud County Health Center, Juliana Canetta, who is absent, and then Karen.
Okay. So Karen, I looked through it. I don't know if you want to make some comments. I did not find anything other than what was indicated on the check sheet. It looked pretty thorough to me.
It did to me too. This is Karen, CNE committee member. And the only thing I caught on the 2 offerings that were submitted, I didn't see where they submitted a summary of planning, but they did have in their policies that they include summary of planning. So I don't know if that's an important piece. But otherwise, I thought it looked very good.
Okay.
Juliana, this is Chelsea. Would you like me to move forward with the motion?
That would be great.
Okay. Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the long-term provider 5-year renewal application for Cloud County Health Center LT 0273-0911.
This is Karen Offenberg, and I so move.
Thank you, Karen. Is there a second?
Adri Goldsmith, board member, I second.
Thank you, Adri. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to Coffeyville Regional Medical Center. Again, this was one of mine.
I also have Rebecca and then Karen again.
Okay. Rebecca, Karen, any comments you want to make? I did, it looked thorough to me.
This is Karen. Oh, go ahead, Rebecca.
I concur, so I'll pass it to you.
Okay,
Karen.
I did too. The only thing I caught on their submission again, on their certificate, or not certificate, their roster, I did not see they just submitted a blank roster, but I didn't see where it included the provider's address, number, and the coordinator's name. Did anyone catch that? But in their policies there again, they did mention those items.
Okay. I did not catch that. So
I think it was on page 75, was the roster.
okay. Yeah, they have it on the certificate, but not on the roster, it looks like. Okay. Is that something we could ask them to just add, possibly?
Madam Chair, this is Chelsea. That's typically what we've done in the past, and I can put that in the motion, that they would be approved contingent upon receiving that.
I think that sounds great.
This is Karen again. Could I make one more comment?
Yes,
Or
please.
I think it's more of a question on my part. In regulation on the credit statement, it states contact hours applicable for APRN, RN, and LPN relicensure. I noticed, and I've had this question come up before, on page 69 and 62, I think it was on their flyers, they altered the statement by taking out APRN, which I understand. I think it was just designed for RNs and LPNs. Are we okay to alter that statement since it's in regulation, or do we have to include the APRN piece, even though it's not designed? That's probably more of a legal question.
What's that regulation number again?
Oh, I don't have that in front of me.
I think it's 60-9-107, Charles. I'm looking, but I'm not 100%.
Could you say that again, what your question was?
Yes, in the statement that we are to put on, or providers are to put on announcements, and I believe on the certificates, it states the last sentence, contact hours are applicable for APRN, RN, and LPN. And I noticed on theirs, they did remove APRN. Is that acceptable?
But was that CE offering not approved, I mean, not applicable to APRN because
Right.
it's not correct?
So are we allowed, since it's in regulation, to take out?
Charles, it's in 60-9-107, 3C.
Okay.
I've just had that question asked before, and I'm not sure how to reply.
But if it doesn't have credits for APRN, you can't advertise it because the
Yeah.
APRN shouldn't be enrolling in a class that the credits will not count. So that's a good question. Are you able to cater that statement to the degree and level of approved CEs for the different providers that you're serving?
Can you say that again? 69-9-107.
60-9-107, 3C. It's under advertisements or offering announcements.
Okay.
This is Carol Moreland. If I can just add something while Charles is looking here. I will tell you in the revisions that you have going forward, you have put in there to specify which level it would be applicable to. So going forward, if those get approved, this might be answered, but for right now, yeah.
Yay, so you guys fixed it on the moving forward.
On the new ones, but not right now.
Okay,
That would take care of that question.
that would. And I would hate you to falsely advertise it's applicable for APRNs, and then they turn around and get notified by the State Board of Nursing that they didn't count.
Correct. That was the issue I was seeing.
Yeah, I hear what you guys are saying. See providers out there, no wonder there's some confusion on that statement.
And like I said, I just noticed on coffee bills, they had done that, which,
Probably
I
meant they
think
didn't
other-
get certified for APRNs is what that
Right.
means. Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like we were getting some clarity around that, hopefully in the future. Right now, I think, Charles, I don't know if you have other comments, but I appreciate the fact that they did take APRN out if this course was not intended for an APRN.
Yeah, I think that's fine because it's not applicable.
Absolutely. So, okay. So, Chelsea, would you like to read a motion for us?
Sure. Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the long-term provider 5-year renewal application for Coffeyville Regional Medical Center, LT 0099-0316, pending the submission of an updated roster.
Giovanni Kone, board member, and I make that motion.
Thank you, Giovanni. Is there a second?
Karen Oftenberg, CNE member. I second.
Thank you, Karen. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. We'll go on to Eagle Med, and I think this was also mine.
And I also have Rebecca and Audrey.
Okay. So again, Becky, Audrey, I did not find any concerns. I thought the checklist was complete. Did either of you have comments?
I thought that they had a very impressive team. I hope that's okay to say. That was a highly technical CNE that you could get a lot out of.
I didn't see anything either. It's kind of a different take on what we're used to seeing because Eagle Med from Wichita, and they have a different way of delivery.
Mhm.
But I certainly didn't see anything missing either using the checklist.
Great. Okay.
Is
wanna read it?
there a is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the long-term provider 5-year renewal application for Eagle Med LLC LT 0208-0916.
This
One
is
more.
Rebecca.
And I'll move.
Oh, go ahead, Gwen. Gwen did.
Hey, is there a second?
This is Rebecca, board member. I will second.
Thank you, Rebecca. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we've got, is it Gertie? Is that what?
That's
GE?
how when I say it in my head, that's how I say it.
Okay.
This is Rebecca, Audrey, and Gwendolyn.
Okay. You want to give us an update?
I didn't see anything either that was missing. I don't know, Audrey, what do you think?
Was this one of the ones that had some of the, I know you look at the bibliographies, and I think they had some that were pretty older. Wasn't it like a 5-year? They needed to be more than 5-year on that. And, but I don't, they had a lot of newer ones. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
They did have
they did,
some.
yeah.
But other than that, that was the only thing I saw.
Sometimes when I see something that's quite old, I look at the topic of it, and there are some classics out there that, in the nursing world just will never die and never go away. And so sometimes I kind of accept it as long as the rest of the bib was quite current. And I think theirs was, if I remember right.
It was. Thank you for, I'm learning from you.
Well, sometimes, you just have to see what the topic is. You can't plug anything in there and say it's a standard, a gold standard for nursing.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, Chelsea.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the long-term provider 5-year renewal application for Gertie LT 0249-0916.
Adri Goldsmith, I make the motion.
Thank you, Adri. Is there a second?
Giovanni Gone, I'll second that.
Thank you, Giovanni. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So we'll look at Casey Hospice and Palliative Care.
And this was Audrey, Gwendolyn, and Giovanni.
Okay. Any comments?
I thought it looked okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't find anything, again, some of the dates were older, but a lot of new stuff. And now I know that's not relevant.
Okay.
It was a really good application. Yeah, very thorough.
It's good to see this thoroughness. I think this checklist has really come a long way. So Chelsea, you want to?
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the long-term provider 5-year renewal application for KC Hospice and Palliative Care, LT 0118-0916.
This is Gwen Lloyd and I move.
Thank you, Gwen. Is there a second?
Adri Goldsmith, board member, I second.
Thank you, Adri. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, so I think we're at Newton Medical Center.
This is Gwendolyn, Giovanni, and Melanie, who is absent today.
Okay.
Again,
Gwen?
I thought this was very thorough. I liked how they had it set up.
Okay,
Yes, I didn't find anything. This is Giovanni.
great. Okay, Chelsea,
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the long-term provider 5-year renewal application for Newton Medical Center, LT 0209-0916.
Giovanni Gone, board member, and I make that motion.
thank you, Giovanni. Is there a second?
Erin Offenberg, CNE committee member, and I second.
Thank you, Karen. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, and now we are at New Health.
Yep, this is Giovanni, Melanie, who was absent, and Laura. I believe Laura's absent as well.
Okay. Giovanni, any comments?
Right. Very good application. I didn't find anything that is needed to be fixed. Very good application.
Okay. Okay, Chelsea,
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the long-term provider 5-year renewal for Value Health, LT 0276-0911.
This is Gwen Lloyd and I'll move.
thank you, Gwen. Is there anyone who would like to second?
This is Rebecca, board member. I'll second.
Thank you, Rebecca. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Thank you. We have, I believe, one initial long-term provider application for CE that matters.
Yes, and I have Melanie and, oh, you know what I just noticed? It's all of the absent people that were assigned this task. Laura, Melanie, and Kaneda.
Okay, so we'll just take a quick look at it then and see what we think. Sorry, I gotta get down there, my scroll button.
Madam Chair, this is Chelsea with the board. While you all look, I just wanted to add this new provider is under some sort of mentorship with an existing provider that we have. So that existing provider kind of mentored them along in the application process. So I just wanted to throw that out there as you're reviewing this new information.
That's nice that
It was very nice.
they did that, yeah. Does anyone have any comments that they'd like to make? Just, it looks very thorough to me. I'm down here looking at the certificate.
I thought it was well written. I didn't see anything.
Okay, I'm going through that checklist. It doesn't look like board staff had any concerns. So I appreciate the fact that they partnered with someone. If the committee's ready, we would entertain a motion.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the initial application for CE That Matters.
Adri Goldsmith, I make that motion.
Thank you, Adri. Is there a second?
Gwen Lloyd, and I'll second.
Thanks, Gwen. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, item number 6, review of IV therapy provider annual report data.
Madam Chair, this is Chelsea with the board staff. This report you will find on page 313, and it's just an overview, like our CNE providers, of all of our IV therapy providers in the annual reports that they are required to submit. It is the same as with the long-term provider CNE. The only difference is that IV therapy providers do not provide or do not pay an annual fee. So you'll see the number of courses that they provide, RNs enrolled, LPNs enrolled, and then the success of that course.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you for providing that. I think it's good information for us to review. And as an employer, it's certainly beneficial to have the LPNs coming out of school with IV therapy. So we appreciate it. Okay. And then our IV therapy task force report.
Madam Chair, this is Chelsea with the staff again. This is a new task force that we were directed to form when IV therapy was with the practice committee last time. It has long been discussed that perhaps the IV therapy test questions are outdated. They're no longer applicable to the work that's happening in the field and need to be updated. So we were directed to create a task force to review the questions that we currently utilize on those certification tests. So we met in August. Rebecca was the committee member present with me. And then we also had 2 other people on the call with us who are actually IV therapy providers. And then we had one person who's also on the committee or on the task force who was unavailable that day, but was still reviewing information for us. So I just wanted to provide you all with a summary of what we discussed. We did find that many of the questions were not applicable to an LPN's scope of practice. Especially there are a lot of A&P questions that are not necessarily a part of the LPN's knowledge base or their scope of practice. There were questions about central lines, DIG, TPNs, lipids, things that just don't apply to LPN's scope of practice. Some of the questions were outdated. Specifically, there were questions about drops versus programming pumps, cleaning of sites. Some questions were not in alignment with INS. We talked about how questions should include more basic knowledge like math, figuring formulas, tubing questions, infectious control disease, prevention questions. And so those are kind of some of the things that stood out to us. We also noted that there is when we send our questions to our providers, we send them a test pool of questions of 100 questions. The test consists of 50 of those. So the provider is able to choose whichever 50 questions they would like. what we took from the meeting, and then I took our concerns and questions and spoke with Carol here at board staff as well. And what we would like to request, or maybe get some guidance from the committee on, is we would like to create a new test pool of 100 questions, partly pulling from what is already there in existence, and then just considering what don't we have that should be on this certification test, what is applicable and appropriate, what should the LPNs be tested on. And we talked in our meeting about not just having them memorize data or information, but actually learning what they need to know to be in the field. So we would like to request permission and approval to do that, or be open to what the committee thinks we should do moving forward. We don't have another meeting scheduled at this time. We wanted to wait and see what the committee and board's thoughts were before we got that going. Again.
Thoughts or discussion from the group?
I think those are excellent ideas to how to correct the concerns with it.
I have a question about what they, where they get their information from. Is there a standard book with the information? Do they each choose their own book, how they want to do it? So that's my question.
I'm going to ask Carol to come on board with me.
Yeah, this is Carol Moreland from the agency. Actually, the infusion, what's it called? The Journal of Nursing Infusion Society. I don't know if that's exactly right. That's where a lot of this was taken from at the beginning when we started this. And we do get updates on that. So that's probably going to be like the gold standard for a lot of this.
Do they have a guide or a generic, what do I want to say, curriculum, and then the individual program that's offering then has their own textbook? Do you know, Carol?
I don't know the answer to that. I can say that our regulations and the test came out. The references were used by that journal that I was referring to, but I can't speak for every individual provider because, you know, with it going into the PN curriculum, they're probably going to use some of the textbooks that they already have, would be my guess, on IV therapy and things like that.
I'm just concerned on the information that they would get, whether, because one of the questions that was brought up at another meeting was about after pulling the cannula out, cleaning the site with alcohol and all of that going through, which in practice, we will clean it, but we don't necessarily put the alcohol on for however long, like it was saying the one program had the question. And so my question was just the information. Are they getting the correct basic information when they do take these classes?
Well, this is Carol again. I mean, if it comes from the committee and the board that there's a certain reference that you want them to utilize as far as a book or something, or I think you just have to give us direction, or, you know, if you wanted Chelsea to check references from the providers and see maybe what they're using or something like that.
It would be nice to know generally where they are getting their information from. I know when I've taken the IV course in my number of years multiple times. It was a slideshow, and they really focused on what the area I was working in handled. So a nursing home would be different. Home health, different. In the hospital or in a clinic setting, they kind of focus on the area they're teaching to. Now, I'm sure in the schools it's totally different, but it did change given. So knowing basically what they're basing it on would be interesting.
That's a good point and good feedback, Audrey, since you've done this before, taken the test, taken the class, taken the test.
Well, I appreciate the work
Good
of the
point.
task force, and this is Juliana, committee chair, and I think I appreciate the review and getting that test updated. So Chelsea, I know you're kind of looking for direction to move forward. I think from our discussion, it might be helpful for us to understand a little bit of the references and the resources that the schools are using to prepare their students, and maybe that can help the task force then also prepare test questions. But I don't know if you're looking for a motion or just kind of general consensus that we want you to move forward.
This is Chelsea with the staff agency. I think if you just give me the directive, I can reach out to all of our IV therapy providers and find out where they're getting their curriculum or their teaching information from, and then bring that information back in December.
I think that sounds great. I think that
Okay.
sounds
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.
So I think we're ready to talk about the agenda for December 2021.
So, Madam Chair, this is Chelsea. Just to recap, I will put the IV therapy task force update on the December agenda, just to bring back that information from the providers. And then I would request that we add approved national credentialing organizations. Our website and our regulations indicate that CNE is pre-approved without the submission of an individual offering approval form if it is credentialed by a national organization, but there's not a clear-cut list of who those national organizations may be. So Carol found a list that we would like to review, and I'd like to do some research on further and perhaps bring that back to the committee in December for some discussion and review.
I think that sounds like a great idea. I had some questions myself when I renewed my license the last time. So I think that that's very pertinent. I would appreciate that.
Sure.
Anything else specific for the December 2021 agenda?
I don't have anything, Madam Chair. This is Chelsea.
I had one question. So even though we're researching that she's going to ask them about their references for the IV training, will they be able to go ahead and start working on the questions so it doesn't delay anything?
I think we certainly can. It might be helpful to have those references so that they can build the questions from those references. So we may need that feedback from Chelsea before that group moves forward. Chelsea, do you have a thought on that?
I think probably that would be the most helpful for the task force. Originally on the list of 100 questions, it is broken out into topic or common area. There's an A and P section, and initially the task force decided that we were going to, take on maybe one group at a time and bring those back and consider, so we're not completely overwhelmed with just coming up with 100 random questions. But I do think the information from the providers about what they're teaching from would really help guide the task force when they're considering that.
Okay. So maybe I appreciate your concerned to get things moving, and I support that, Audrey. It might just be helpful to have that information. So maybe we'll look at that in December, and then hopefully send our task force back out and get them going again. So, okay. Well, I think that concludes our agenda. So I really appreciate everyone's participation and engagement in today's meeting. I don't believe we need a motion to adjourn, so we will adjourn our meeting. And thank you all very much. We'll see you in December.
Thank you.